I've always been pretty independent, even when I was young. From a young age, my parents expected me to pull my own weight and be self-sufficient. They weren't the type to coddle or enable me. If I wanted something, I had to work for it myself. This mindset came in handy when I was in my early 20s. I had just finished up college and was looking to get out on my own. My parents' place was getting a bit too cramped, and I was ready for my own space. That's when I stumbled upon this fixer-upper of a house, an old manufactured home on a small lot. It was far from perfect, but the price was unbelievable. I managed to scrape together a decent down payment and get approved for a loan to cover the rest. Most of my friends were still living at home or renting apartments, so they couldn't believe I was buying a house at my age. But I was determined to make it work. The house needed a lot of work, but I was up for the challenge. I spent countless weekends painting, fixing up the plumbing, and making other necessary repairs. It was a ton of work, but I took pride in turning this little house into a home. Once I got settled in, I convinced my best friend to move in with me. Having a roommate helped cover the mortgage and bills, plus it was nice to have the company. We got along great and seemed to have a good system going. I was finally living the independent life I had always wanted. Of course, my parents weren't too thrilled about my newfound freedom and self-sufficiency. They seemed to think that just because I was out on my own, I should still be dependent on them in some way. Shortly after I moved in, they started hinting that they wanted to trade houses with me. They claimed my place was nicer and bigger than theirs, and that it just wasn't fair. I thought they were joking at first, but they kept pressing the issue, even going so far as to say I should just give them my house. I couldn't believe the audacity. This was my hard-earned home, not some bargaining chip for my parents to use. I firmly told them that it was not up for discussion. This was my house and they had no claim to it. They didn't take it well. In fact, it sparked a major rift between us. My parents started harassing me, demanding that I let them move in or at least give them money. When I refused, they resorted to underhanded tactics. One day, I came home to find my front door locks drilled out and both of my window AC units missing. I knew immediately who was responsible. I called the police and they apprehended my parents at their own house, stolen AC units in plain sight. It was a humiliating experience for them, but I didn't feel an ounce of sympathy. They had violated my home and stolen from me. Consequences were inevitable. After a lot of yelling and bargaining, my parents agreed to return the AC units, clean up the mess they'd made, and cover the cost of new locks for my door. They also had to write out apologies, which I'm sure pained them to do. I told them that if they ever pulled anything like that again, I wouldn't hesitate to press charges. The whole ordeal left me shaken, but also more resolute in my independence. I decided to invest in some security cameras to prevent any future break-ins. I also made it clear to my parents that our relationship would remain distant until they could respect my autonomy. It was a difficult boundary to set, but necessary for my own well-being. As I sat in my little house, looking around at the home I had built for myself, I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. Despite my parents' best efforts to undermine me, I had succeeded in carving out my own life. This was my domain, and no one was going to take that away from me. The incident with my parents had left me feeling on edge for a while. Even though they had returned the stolen AC units, I had new locks installed. I couldn't shake the violation of having my home broken into. I found myself constantly glancing at the security cameras, hypervigilant for any signs of suspicious activity. My best friend, who I'll call Sam, could tell I was a bit on edge. They tried to reassure me that everything was fine and that my parents wouldn't dare try anything again after the last fiasco. But I just couldn't fully relax. One evening, as Sam and I were relaxing in the living room, the sound of a car pulling into the driveway made me jump. I instinctively peered out the window, half expecting to see my parents lurking about. Instead, I saw an unfamiliar vehicle. My heart started racing as I watched a figure approach the front door. "What's wrong?" Sam asked, noticing my sudden tension. "Someone's at the door," I whispered. "I don't recognize the car." Sam got up and joined me at the window, peering out cautiously. We both held our breath as the doorbell rang, the sound echoing through the house. I glanced at the security camera feed on my phone, relieved to see that it was indeed capturing footage of the visitor. Slowly, I approached the door, Sam right behind me. I took a deep breath and opened it, coming face to face with a middle-aged woman I'd never seen before. "Can I help you?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Hi there," the woman replied with a friendly smile. "I'm your new neighbor, Samantha." Just thought I'd come over and introduce myself. I let out the breath I'd been holding, feeling foolish for my overreaction. Oh, hi. Nice to meet you. I'm your name, and this is my friend Sam. Sam stepped forward and shook Samantha's hand. It's great to meet you. Welcome to the neighborhood. Samantha seemed pleasant enough, and we chatted for a few minutes about the area and how long she'd been living here. She seemed genuinely interested in getting to know us, which was a refreshing change from the constant tension with my parents. After Samantha left, Sam turned to me with a concerned expression. You okay? You seemed really on edge there for a minute. I sighed and ran a hand through my hair. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm still a bit shaken after what happened with my parents. I guess I'm just jumpy whenever someone I don't know shows up. Sam nodded in understanding. I get it, but try not to let them ruin this for you, okay? This is your home, and you deserve to feel safe and comfortable here. They were right, of course. I couldn't let my parents' actions continue to dictate my life. This was my space, my sanctuary, and I needed to reclaim that sense of security and peace. Over the next few days, I made an effort to be more welcoming to Samantha and the other neighbors. I even invited them over for a small housewarming party, figuring it couldn't hurt to build some positive connections in the community. To my delight, several of them showed up, bringing housewarming gifts and offering to lend a hand with any projects I might have. It was a refreshing change of pace from the constant drama with my parents. These people seemed genuinely interested in getting to know me and supporting my newfound independence. I found myself relaxing and even enjoying the company, laughing and swapping stories late into the evening. As the party wound down and the last of the guests departed, Sam turned to me with a warm smile. See, I told you it would be good for you to put yourself out there. I nodded, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. You were right. I think this is exactly what I needed, a chance to start fresh and build my own community, separate from my dysfunctional family. Sam clapped me on the back. That's the spirit. Now, how about we crack open a cold one and toast to your newfound independence? I grinned, grabbing a couple of beers from the fridge. Sounds like a plan. Cheers to a new chapter. As we clinked our bottles together, I couldn't help but feel a sense of optimism. Maybe, just maybe, I was finally on the path to the peaceful, drama-free life I'd always wanted. The housewarming party was a resounding success, and I found myself feeling more at home in my little neighborhood than I ever had growing up. My new neighbors, led by the ever-friendly Samantha, made a real effort to welcome me and include me in the community. It was a refreshing change of pace from the constant tension and drama with my parents. Instead of feeling on edge and suspicious, I found myself relaxing and even looking forward to casual get-togethers or block parties. These people genuinely seemed to care about me and my well-being, not just what they could take from me. One afternoon, while I was out tending to my modest garden, Samantha strolled over with a plate of freshly baked cookies. Thought you could use a little pick-me-up, she said with a warm smile. I gratefully accepted the offering, the aroma of the treats instantly lifting my mood. You really didn't have to do that, I replied, gesturing to the small patch of vegetables and herbs I was cultivating. But I certainly appreciate it. Samantha waved a hand dismissively. Nonsense. We look out for our own around here. She glanced around at the modest homes lining the street. This may not be the fanciest neighborhood, but the people make up for it. I nodded in agreement, taking a bite of the delicious cookie. You got that right. It's a far cry from the dysfunction I'm used to. Samantha's expression softened with understanding. I gathered there might be some family drama in your past. I hope you know that you've got a new support system here, if you ever need it. I felt a lump form in my throat, touched by her genuine concern. Thank you, Samantha. That really means a lot. She patted my arm reassuringly. Anytime, dear. Now, I better get back before the rest of the cookies disappear. Let me know if you need anything else, okay? I watched as she strolled back to her own home, feeling a newfound sense of belonging. It was such a stark contrast to the constant power struggles and resentment I'd experienced with my own parents. These people were kind, accepting, and genuinely interested in looking out for one another. As the weeks passed, I found myself spending more and more time with my neighbors. We'd gather for impromptu barbecues, share gardening tips, and even organize community cleanups. It was the kind of supportive, low-key environment I'd always craved but never had. My parents, of course, were less than thrilled by my newfound independence and sense of community. They would call, demanding to know why I was neglecting them in favor of these strangers. I would patiently explain that these were my neighbors, my friends, and that I had every right to cultivate my own life separate from their dysfunction. "But we're your family," my mother would argue, her voice laced with hurt and indignation. "How can you just abandon us like this?" I took a deep breath, trying to keep my own frustration in check. "I'm not abandoning you. I'm simply setting boundaries and focusing on my own well-being. You two have made it clear that you don't respect my autonomy, and I won't allow that to continue." The conversations would often devolve into shouting matches, with my parents accusing me of being ungrateful and selfish. But I refused to budge. This was my life, my home, and my choice. If they couldn't accept that, then that was their problem, not mine. Over time, the calls became less frequent, and the tension eventually settled into an uneasy truce. My parents seemed to realize that I was serious about maintaining my distance, at least for the time being. And while I still cared for them on some level, I knew that my newfound community was far healthier and more supportive. As I sat on my porch one evening, sipping a cold beer and watching the sun dip below the horizon, I couldn't help but feel a sense of peace and contentment. This was my domain, my sanctuary, a place where I could truly be myself, without the constant scrutiny and demands of my dysfunctional family. Sure, there were still challenges and the occasional bumps in the road, but with the unwavering support of my new neighbors, I felt confident that I could weather any storm. This was my fresh start, my chance to build the life I'd always wanted. And I wasn't about to let anyone, not even my own parents, take that away from me.